Chapter 19, Legal Descriptions and Deeds. In this chapter, we're going to talk about the three methods of describing real property, the three legal descriptions of real property. We're going to identify the four types of deeds that are commonly used in New Jersey. And we're going to dive into the anatomy of a deed and learn about the parts of a deed. So let's first start off with a legal description. You could highlight this on page 353 at the bottom. This is on page 353. And what is a legal description? It's an exact way of describing real property in a contract, deed, mortgage, or other document that's acceptable in a court of law. A legal description can be combined or altered only by a competent authority, such as a surveyor or title attorney. Okay. Contrary to popular belief, your address is not a legal description of the property. Did you know that your postman, your post office, can change your address at any time
No,
without your consent?
no, they cannot, right?
Sure, they can.
Oh, really?
Yes, I've seen them do it. Somebody goes to build a house, and I guess they didn't allocate addresses right. But then again, I've seen post offices just instead of changing people's addresses, just say instead of 1031, the next address next door is 1031B, or 1031-1 or something like that. But I've seen them change the address and shift the addresses of everybody on the block.
Oh, wow.
What a nightmare that could do for everybody. Now got to get their IDs and everything changed, what a hassle, right? So,
Yeah.
but either way, it's not a legal description of land. I've seen it done before. I've had students in class where that's happened before. It's not common, but let's just say it's not uncommon either. So it's not considered a legal description of land, your address. It may be helpful in finding the place, but it's not a legal description. Surveys are. So we're going to go over those in this chapter. Deed
So,
is a document.
this,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
so they change it through the system in the mail office. Through the system, they change it forever like that.
I don't know what their process is, but they change the
Wow.
address of your property. Yeah,
Never heard of
they'll
this.
notify you
Okay.
that your address has been changed.
Okay.
Okay. So a deed is a document that conveys one's rights, title, or interest in real property, and it must include adequate description of the land being conveyed. There are three legal descriptions of land that you need to know and study, and they are metes and bounds. The rectangular survey, also known as the government survey system, and amongst professionals, it's in the survey world, it's the public land survey system. Okay. But either way, you'll probably get rectangular or government survey on exams. And then you have the plat map, which is a map of a subdivision. Okay. Located as recorded and located in the county where the land is located. So what do we have? There's the three legal descriptions of land. There are metes and bounds, rectangular or
Rectangular
government survey,
government.
and a plat map. So you need to know that for exams. What we're going to get into now a little more deeper, what are each one of those? Okay. So that's what's coming up. So you guys have the highlights here,
Yes,
Yes.
we
the
do.
legal descriptions.
Yes.
All right. So I put together some slides here because these are some terms we get in this chapter, but I don't like the order that I think that they should be brought forward in this chapter. So I'm bringing them forward because before we start getting into these different legal descriptions, I think that we should discuss these terms first. So let's see. I'm going to make a note about this. Chapter 19. Bring terms to front of chapter. Benchmark. datum and months. Okay, so a benchmark or a legal description should always include the name of the county and state in which the land is located. Let's start off right there because there are multiple municipalities within the state that share the same name. They're just in different counties. So we need to know where this property is actually located. So you don't just state the name of the municipality, but also the name of the county. Because which property are we talking about? Which municipality? Which county? You know? So the benchmark is a local permanent marker that aids surveyors in their measurements, which could be based on these local markers rather than an actual benchmark, which could be miles and miles away. Like we're going to get into the next one, a datum. A datum is a measurement of elevation. It's a point, line, or surface from which elevation is measured according to the USGS. That's the United States Geological Survey, and that's a department within our government that monitors our planet. So they define zero sea level, or they define zero elevation as the mean sea level in New York Harbor. So if you have a house in Piscataway, for example, you're not going to have a surveyor that's going to go all the way to New York Harbor to take a measurement of the water, the sea level, and then work their way back all the way to Piscataway to see what the elevation is. However, somebody did do that at one point in time. And when they did, they put a local marker that says, as of this point, this is what this current elevation is. All right. So instead of the surveyor going all the way to New York Harbor, they could use that local marker instead. Okay, so those are those benchmarks, those local permanent markers that aid surveyors in their measurements. It'll also say on there where how many feet above sea level you are as of this point, and then the surveyor can work back from that local marker to the property that they're measuring instead of from the actual benchmark, which could be miles away in New York Harbor. You guys follow?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So yeah, the USGS, that's a department of government that monitors our planet. You know, they monitor the sea levels, they monitor for seismic activity, they monitor for asteroids that may be hitting the Earth. You know, they're the ones that have the weather satellites that a lot of news agencies, if they don't have their own, you could see the weather satellites that they use. It has the logo somewhere on it, USGS. That's the United States Geological Survey. So they monitor volcanoes, they monitor for tidal waves and things of that nature. Like they just monitor our planet. Now, monuments are markers that you could pay the surveyor extra money to put at each of the corners of the property. So now you have a visualization of where your property's boundary is. You could tie a string around one to the other, boom, and now you could visually see where your property's boundary lines are. Okay, because you could pay for a survey, which is a measurement of your land. A licensed surveyor will measure your property and do the mapping of it. They'll draw a map, and then they'll give you the legal description and the map. But still, if they gave you that, you probably still wouldn't be able to find the corners of your property. So always advise your clients to ask how much the surveyor is charging before you hire that surveyor to put a monument, those markers at each of the corners of the property. Keep in mind, some properties have only 3 corners. Some have more than 4. It depends on the shape of the property. So there's you got to ask how much they charge. I have seen surveyors charge as little as $75 per marker to as much as $475 per marker. Okay, so it makes a difference. So the attorney is usually the one that has a surveyor on hand, and they usually order the survey. But the buyer, they can order the survey on their own. So make sure that when you're working with the buyers and you tell them they're going to need to get a survey done, make sure you tell them to ask the surveyor how much they charge for each of the markers before they hire them. Otherwise, you hire them to do a survey, and now you tell them to put the markers in, and then they're going to rip you off and charge you whatever they want, you know. And then they'll give you a snarky response when you ask, why is it so expensive? They'll say, because I know where to put the marker. You're paying for my knowledge, you know. So price around, have them price around with the surveyors before they actually hire them.
The
Okay,
owner has to pay this, right?
what?
Whoever buys this property, they have to pay this
Buyer,
charge.
yeah, the buyer's getting a survey. A survey is a another type of home inspection the buyer gets of the land. It shows the layout of the land, the boundaries of the property. You can see if the neighbor built a shed over the property line or any other illegal extension over the property line. You got to know where the property line is, right?
Mhm,
So you got to
mhm.
get a survey of the property first.
Yeah.
So
Yes, I have issues with my property. I don't know what is my. I see the line is a little corner. So the guy he
well,
do some
that's the
construction
thing.
design.
That's the thing. You never know where your property line is unless you got a survey done, and the surveyor bangs the stakes into the corners of each of the corners of the property. Because sometimes you get real estate agents, they're showing properties, and they're like, hey, where's you got a buyer, there's like, hey, where's the property line? Is it over here where the row of bushes are? Is it where the fence is, or is it where the land kind of slopes a little bit? If you get a real estate agent that they get in there and say, let me get over there, let me take a look. And they start looking, what are you looking at? Unless you're trying to line up a couple of surveyor stakes that are sticking out of the ground, I don't know what that agent's looking at. It's impossible for you to tell where the property line is without those surveyor stakes in the ground. Now, look, a lot of properties may already have them in the ground because when they install those pieces of steel rebar into the ground at each of the corners, now they could be made of wood, rebar, or a ribbon, like they pin to a tree if a tree is right at the corner location. But often at the corners of the property, they already have had a survey at some point in time in the past, and then they just banged it in with a hammer to sink it below the grass a couple of inches so people's lawnmowers don't hit it, you know. But you need a metal detector to find it, because it's buried under the grass, So
So they put it something like that.
yeah,
Which has,
and they leave it in the ground usually. You just countersink it. So if you ever should need to know where your property line is, you could just use a metal detector, locate it, and pull it up out of the ground. But there it is. Tie a string around that one to the next one, and you could now know where your property line is. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's what a benchmark, datum, and monument is. Okay. Now you can be highlighting definitions several pages from now for this. I think my definitions are similar to the ones that are in the book, but once again, a little bit clearer than what you're going to be highlighting. So if you want to snap a picture of it, be my guest. Okay.
One
You already
second.
did?
No, 1 second.
Oh, okay.
I'm just using this tool. Okay.
So here's some pictures of those benchmarks, okay?
Oh,
The
wow.
surveyor benchmarks. It could be a sign that's in the ground like this. It shows you this is a surveyor mark and that it's illegal to move it or disturb it. You got all kinds that they're often countersunk or glued to or embedded in rock or stone or even carved into it. Okay, here's one from 1933. $250 fine or imprisonment for disturbing this mark. And then it shows you the elevation above sea level, how many feet above sea level. This one was posted by the U.S. Coastal and Geodetic Survey. So it'll say who actually placed that marker. Like this one is from the Army Corps of Engineers. This one was 19 something. I don't know. It's hard to read that. Here's one that's being reposted in the Adirondacks from 1882. Okay, so they're going to reset it in 2018 because the old marker probably rotted away. So now they're resetting that marker with a new one with the same data. Look, here's one that was just carved into a rock in 1890. You know, since we started exploring these lands and came to this land that is now the United States of America, we had to have explorers that went out and throughout the country, and they mapped out the lands, and they made these markers so that they can map out the lands, but also have these markers because they're measuring elevation as well as distance and such. And then they made these markers. Look, here's one in a brick. As of this point, you're 348 3/4 feet above sea level as of this point. You know, here this one looks like it may be at a waterfall or a dam. You got one here. Look, here's a Disney World one they customized there. Here's a survey marker. So there's many looks to them. And here's an old group of surveyors. They always worked in teams or groups. And here's some of the rudimentary tools that they've used in the past. And this is called a surveyor's chain. A surveyor's chain is usually either 33 feet or 66 feet in length. So two surveyors, they'll stretch out that chain, and then they take their measurements, and then they walk the next distance, and they stretch out the chain. And they did that around the entire United States to measure our land. Imagine that, measuring out. You guys ever take a ride across a state, let alone the country? Imagine walking around the whole entire country slowly like this, stretching out these chains and taking measurements. There was a lot of groups of surveyors out there that were measuring out our land. You got a compass here. They put these things usually on a pole as well. They take the measurements of elevation as well as distance. All right. So here are some units of measure that are used. An acre, which I told you we need to memorize, is 43,560 square feet in an acre. There's a township is 36 square miles, and there are 36 sections within a township. Each section is 1 square mile. Now, when I say township, don't think of Edison Township or Woodbridge Township. That's talking about the form of government that the municipality has chosen to be managing it. When we're doing surveys, the word township has a different meaning. It's a unit of measure, okay? And that unit of measure is 36 square miles or 6 miles squared, okay? Surveyor chains, you don't need to know the length. You don't need to memorize that for exams. You don't need to know how many acres are in a square mile. Or what a hectare is, okay? But these are additional types of measurements that are used.
So acres, 43,560 square feet.
Correct.
You know, we usually ask question like this. How many square, if somebody buys the property, how many squares? That we usually ask, right? House. And this acres is equal to 43,560 square feet.
Well, we're talking about the land, not the house. You know,
Land.
you're not gonna have a house that's an acreage in size.
Right. Oh my God, that's like a.
Okay. So,
Okay.
but we need to know this. Like we did math problems earlier about measuring land. Okay, I think we did one in we did them in chapter 1, the measurements of land.
Right.
Okay. All right. So once again, here's this slide again with benchmarks, datum, and monuments listed on here, those definitions. And then I added another one. We started with the first legal description of land here, the metes and bounds system. It's a measurement of distance and direction, meters and boundaries. So it meets and bounds. It's a measurement of distance and direction around the property's boundaries. And it's only used in the 13 original colonies, the 13 original states, which New Jersey is one of. So the surveyor will start and end their measurement around a property from a point of beginning. So they'll pick a point at one of the corners of the property that they'll start their measurement from, and then they'll work their way either clockwise or counterclockwise. It's usually clockwise, but it could be either way. It's just that the surveyor needs to mark on the survey which direction they did their measurement in, either going clockwise or counterclockwise, and then they start their measurement at the point of beginning, go all the way around the property until they return to that point of beginning. So the point of beginning, or POB, that's where the surveyor's measurement begins and ends using the metes and bounds system. So once again, it's a measurement used only in the 13 original states, which New Jersey's one of. We're actually the third. So the measurement begins and ends at that designated point of beginning. And the surveyor's measurements can proceed clockwise or counterclockwise as long as they noted on the survey. Monuments are used to establish the real estate boundaries, and these could be metal or wooden stakes or ribbons that the surveyor, you'd pay extra money for the surveyor to put them in the ground or pin it to a tree. So here's just that tip again. Make sure you tell your clients to ask how much the surveyor would charge for putting those stakes in the ground, those monuments, because the fees can vary greatly. And you can negotiate before you hire them. But after you hire them and they do the survey, trying to negotiate how much they're going to charge you to put the stakes in the ground, they hold all the cards. So they can charge whatever they want. And it could be cheap or it could be very expensive. And we need to get surveys done before we do any construction, before we do any paving, before we put up a fence, before we put up a shed. We need to know how many feet off the property line we're off of. And you don't just go off of whatever fence is already there because, hey, it could already be over the property line, right? So we need to get a survey to find out.
How can somebody find out a survey company?
How do they find a survey company?
Yeah.
You can just search them online,
Online.
Look in a directory. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Your attorneys will usually have a surveyor, but you got to make sure that you got to ask them how much they charge. $475 is ridiculous per stake to put in the ground. That's extremely expensive. But I've seen them charge that much. They could charge more too, but I've seen them charge that much. But so it depends also how difficult the survey is too. All right, so metes and bounds description makes use of the boundaries and measurements of the land in question, and such a description starts at a definite designated point called the point of beginning, or POB. Okay, and then it proceeds all the way around the property until it ends at that location again. Now you could have some legal descriptions that just say, starting at the point of beginning and moving due north for 150 feet, then due east for 75 feet, then due south 150 feet, then due west 75 feet, returning to the point of beginning. And now we just had ourselves a measurement of a property that is 75 by 150 feet deep. Or you could have ones that read like this. Beginning at the intersection of the east line of Jones Road and the south line of Skull Drive, thence east along the south line of Skull Drive 200 feet Fence south 15 degrees east, 216.5 feet more or less to the center thread of Red Skull Creek. Fence northwesternly, so I mean, surveyors know how to read this nonsense. I mean, I'm going to show you a survey that's even more whacked out. It's a survey for my house. I'll show you in a moment. Okay. So monuments, let's highlight those, are fixed objects used to establish real estate boundaries. Those are the stakes that the surveyor puts in the ground at each of the corners of the property. All right. So here's a survey of my property right here. I had it done because I was going to be tearing down my shed and putting up a new one, which I still haven't done yet. Now the survey screwed up one little thing. He put down that I had an asphalt driveway. I actually have a concrete driveway. He got it right with the concrete walkway here and concrete walkway here. But either way, my road is on a bend. So if you could see, there's a measurement here with the arch, the radius, and the diameter. And it shows from this point to this point, that's 50 feet. This point to this point may be a little wider in the back, right? It's 78.74 feet. Okay. This length here, see, obviously my lot's not a perfect rectangle, right? You have 123 feet and change on this side, 105 feet and change on this side. But they also make notations here of an existing fence. There's a wood fence here. You see how they wrote wood fence? That wood fence is the neighbor back here. Now, when this survey was done, their fence was over the property line by about 1.5 feet.
Oh.
So the survey uncovered that. So their fence was actually leaning over, slats were missing and everything. So they put up a new wood fence. But then they contacted me about putting up a new fence. I was like, okay, just make sure you put it in the right place this time because it's about 1.5 feet over on my property. I just had a survey done and I showed them a copy of it. So then when they got their own survey done, and then they put the fence up where it was supposed to be. Okay, but this was needed in order to put up a fence, the shed. You got to know how far from the property line it is.
Mm-hmm.
See, even on this side, you see, I have a fence on this side that starts about midway of the house. It doesn't start at the beginning. It starts right here. And this fence goes all the way to the end. Now, if you notice, this fence is inside my property line. When we installed the fence, we put it inside because there's a bunch of trees over here. Okay. So because you can't put a fence through a tree, we put it in our property a little bit.
Right.
Okay. So that neighbor in the future, they can't claim that they own that land because I got the fence inside our property. All right. So here's the way the legal. Remember, I told you that municipalities are made up of many subdivisions. At one point there was no homes around in this area. Somebody built the home, then somebody came up with an idea to buy a big swath of land and put many homes. So here's a legal description of land and how it would read on my property from my survey. First they talk about the big piece of land that they bought back in the 40s. It says, look, which is known and designated as Lot 8, Block 199-106 on a map entitled Map of Sunnyfield Incorporated, Section 1, Linden, Union County, made by Davison Ross Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors, September 1949, and filed in the office of Union County on January 13, 1950, as Map 335B. The foregoing premises are further described in accordance with a certain survey made by W.M.C. Sweeney Associates, dated November 18, 1978. That's when we bought this house. So we got a survey done in 1978. Beginning at a point of the southwesterly sideline of Sunnyfield Drive, which is a point distant to 312.06 feet along various courses and distances. How surveyors find these corners using this kind of description, I have no idea. I guess it takes quite a bit of education to learn how to do a survey. You got to know math. You got to know map making. You got to be really good with math when doing surveys. That's for sure.
Wow.
Map making. But you see how once they start that and they find out where the point of beginning is here, they say fence along the southwesterly sideline of Sunnyfield Drive in a general southeasterly direction to a curve to the left, having a radius of 325 feet, an arc distance of 56.72 feet to a point. That's the point of beginning. Fence south 55 degrees, 30 minutes, and 0 seconds west. This is the way that airline pilots and sea captains, give explanations. They use degrees of latitude and longitude in minutes and seconds, right? To get to the point. But either way, they're doing measurements of degrees of angles. Because if we go back to this slide, you could see that, it's not straight. It's at an angle. There's a curve in the road. Here's that, you may not be able to read it. It says POB right here, okay? By the way, the curb is right here, okay? This is the curb. And so set back a couple of feet, here is where their measurement starts. Why do they start their measurement off the property line from the curb like that? Well, it's usually about 6 feet because the municipality has a 6 foot right of way. If they wanted to, they could put up a sidewalk down my block using the first 6 feet of land on everybody's property. Okay, so they have that's why, look, there's a utility pole here at the corner. See, they made a notation. All right, anyway, that's the way surveys look. And here's the way that the municipal tax map looks, where you get the lot and block number. All right, so the next one is a rectangular survey. This one's not used in New Jersey or any of the 13 original states. So the rectangular survey, also known as the government survey or public land survey system, it's a survey system used in Western states, not in New Jersey or any of the 13 original colonies. It was established by Congress in 1785. See, prior to that, we were using the metes and bounds system, which was common in Europe and other countries for centuries. Then Congress in 1785 came up with this new way of measuring land, and so that's how they did it in Western states. The measurement locates land using principal meridians and baselines. Those are those invisible lines on your globes in your classrooms when you were in school. You guys remember that? When you got a globe, you got those invisible lines like the equator and the time zones, right? They're separated by degrees of latitude and longitude. That's what they're talking about here. So measurement locates land using the principal meridians and baselines measured by degrees of latitude and longitude to find areas of land called townships. And each township is numbered, has its own unique number. And each township is 36 square miles in size. And each township has its 36 sections. Each one of those sections is 1 square mile. And each one of those sections is numbered as well. I'll show you some pictures and you can see in a moment. So the rectangular or government survey method is based on those principal meridians and baselines. Called to locate areas of land called townships, and within townships are sections. Each township is 36 square miles, and each square mile is called a section. Okay, it's numbered. Those sections are numbered 1 through 36. Section 16 is usually reserved for schools and 14 for government use. Not that we
Oh,
need to
wow.
know that for exams. Okay, so let's just highlight this, what I have highlighted here, that the rectangular survey system is sometimes called the government survey method, and it was established by Congress in 1785 as early pioneers moved westward. This method of describing real property is not used in New Jersey or any of the other 13 original states, because we used which legal description? Which legal description do we use in New Jersey and the 13 original states? Meets and bounds.
Meets and bounds.
Meets and bounds.
It's simple.
Okay.
Yeah, New Jersey in other original states. Okay. Property is not used in New Jersey.
Yep. So it's important to know the differences between these surveys. You will get this stuff on exams, both exams.
Okay.
Chapter 19 is another one of those important chapters we'll see on exams a lot. So here you could see the next page on 355. The rectangular survey system is based on sets of two intersecting lines called principal meridians and baselines, located by reference to degrees of latitude and longitude. So I wrote here that these are units of measure, and I put a bracket around them, and I highlighted townships contain 36 square miles, and sections. A township is further divided into 36 numbered sections. I got an arrow going down to the bottom part here beneath the graphic. Each section contains 1 square mile. And a legal description of land using the rectangular survey system would read like follows. The SE quarter of the SE quarter of the SE quarter of section 1 would be 10 acres square. Okay, so that's, if you see a legal description of land that reads this way, you know that that's the rectangular or government survey. See, here's a picture here of a township. How do I know it's a township? Because it's got 36 numbered boxes in it. Each one of those boxes there is a section. So each section is 1 square mile in size. But you see how the measurements always start? It always starts from the top right-hand corner of the township and then starts counting to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the left. Now 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 to the right. Then 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 to the left. So it goes left, right, left, right, left, right until it gets to number 36. So here, do these highlights, take these notes. Let me know when you got it.
24.
Okay.
I have to write it down, that thing. Illegal description. Of land. Okay.
All right, you both got it?
Yep.
Yes.
Got it.
All right. So once again, just zoomed in here on a township, showing you that there's 36 sections in it, and you got the north, south, west, east indicated, which directions are facing in that township. So here we're going to zoom on those sections within that township. And we're going to use that legal description of, this is an example of what a legal description of land would look like in a government survey system here. The SE quarter of the SE quarter of the SE quarter is 10 acres in size. So it reads like this. If you had one just square box here, and you were to draw a line straight down across right through it, the center. So now you got 4 quarters, a quarter here, quarter here, quarter here, quarter here, right? So the southeast quarter is this quarter. And then we quarter that. And then this is the southeast quarter of the southeast quarter. And then we quarter that. And this is then the southeast quarter of the southeast quarter of the southeast quarter. You see how they come up to that?
Yeah.
You don't need to know how to do the measurements, even though I just showed you an example of a simple one. But this is the way that those legal descriptions would read. I mean, they could get kind of complicated. Look at this one here. And this one's using different kinds of measurements as well. It says the west half of the northeast quarter of the southeast quarter, which is 20 acres or 1 furlong. That's another unit of measure. I just want you to know that if you read the SE quarter of the SE quarter of the SE quarter, you know that that's the governmental rectangular survey. That's all. Okay. So here you got your globes. Remember them from the classrooms way back when we were kids? You got these invisible lines. They're separated by degrees of latitude and longitude. You got your prime meridian and the equator. We all know those ones. So here you could see there's a township grid. And then zooming in on section 14, then they show you the different measurements over here. The previous slide showed you better. But either way, you could get an idea here of the principal meridians and baselines that they were talking about that are separated by degrees of latitude and longitude. All right, so the last one is the plat map, which we learned about in chapter 18 when we were talking about subdivisions, right? A map of a subdivision indicating the location and boundaries of an individual property. So the map is recorded in the county where the land is located. Now, plat maps usually are also combining the meets and bounds system, at least here in New Jersey, to locate the areas of land. Because the meets and bounds then does the measurement around that parcel. All right, so there are other plat maps available in this book on some of these pages I put. And see, each lot location is designated by lot and block number within the map. But they often combine it with the meets and bounds description, because now once you find that property using the lot and block, then they have a measurement about the point of beginning and a measurement around the boundaries of the property itself. So they combine those legal descriptions. So what kind of questions will you get on exams? Well, you definitely need to study benchmark, datum, and monument. You need to know that meets and bounds is the legal description of land that's used in the 13 original states, New Jersey being one of them, and that this measurement commences and ends at a definite designated point called the POB, the point of beginning.
Point to begin. Okay. Point of beginning.
And let's see, for a rectangular or government survey, how could they ask questions on exams? Which legal description of land is used in Western states? They're either going to say rectangular or government survey. I'm not sure which one you'll get on exam. They could use either reference. So they could call it rectangular or they could call it the government survey. Which legal description of land was created by Congress in 1785? The rectangular or government survey system. Which legal description of land consists of areas known as townships, which are 36 miles squared, and sections, which are 1 square mile? The government or rectangular survey. Which legal description of land locates areas of land called townships and sections using degrees of latitude and longitude? The government or rectangular survey. You see how they could ask it? Which legal description of land would have a description like the SE quarter of the SE quarter of the SE quarter is 10 acres in size. The
That is
rectangular or government survey. Okay.
rectangle, right?
Huh?
Rectangular survey, right?
The rectangular or government survey. Yep.
Government survey, yeah.
I'm just showing you a bunch of different examples of how they could ask questions, you know. And oh, did you guys want to snap a picture of this slide? Because this is the one that has everything on it about surveys.
Oh, 1 second.
It
Yeah.
has all the terminology and it has the 3 legal descriptions all on the one slide.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
1 second, 1 second.
Okay.
The whole thing is not coming up. Okay, good. I'm gonna write it down here. I'm done.
All right.
Yep.
So a plat is a map of a subdivision indicating the location of each of the properties. And it's usually combined with the meets and bounds survey because it then has a measurement around the boundaries of the individual property as well. So each municipality consists of many subdivisions that were built over the years as the municipalities were being developed. The tax maps are basically a subdivision maps within the municipality that have just been combined. The description of land is designated by lot and block number in order to locate those areas on a map. The plat map is a map of a subdivision. It's land that divides into lots and blocks. Once again, it indicates the streets, the access roads for public use. It may even show easements. A subdivision plat for condominium will also indicate the reference of elevation, especially if it's a multi-units there's a different unit on each floor. Because now, if you were to just look at a flat map, it looks like there are 3 units located at the exact same location. But if you turn the map sideways and now make it 3-dimensional, you could now have a unit of measurement that unit that's on the 2nd floor begins at a certain height and ends at a certain height. And the unit on the 3rd floor starts at that certain height and then ends at a certain height. So you could see the measurement of elevation is important too. And what do we call the measurement of elevation?
Measurement of
The datum. The datum, or
datum.
however you want to pronounce it, datum. Okay.
So
That's
plate of subdivision, can we say for township, not townhouses, condominiums?
Well, not
those houses?
townhouses. Townhouses are typically multi-level. But when we have a condo that's not multi-level, but there's a different unit on each floor, that's where elevation measurements are important. Because it
Okay.
shows you where it starts and where it ends.
But we can say plate of subdivision, right? For the condo?
Yeah, but a plat map is often combined with the meets and bounds.
Oh, means and bounds.
Not always. I mean, if it's like a apartment building style condos, it may not show you where you're, the exact
The exact
dimensions
point.
of everything. Yeah. All right. So here's another example of a plat map on page 356.
Mhm.
Okay. I just highlighted plat of a subdivision and then wrote map of a subdivision. A plat of a subdivision is filed with the clerk in the county in where the land is located. And you can see here that these are a couple different little mini subdivisions that they have here. And here's a small subdivision where you may have that square lot and then you subdivide it into 8 properties and you put a street on it, put a little cul-de-sac street. You guys can start to read this map and see it now. You guys can start to visualize how this map is. You got lot number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you can see the boundaries of each of the individual properties, how they've been subdivided, right? You can see the measurements of those properties. You know. And then here's the cul-de-sac street.
And what is in the middle? They have what?
In the middle.
25,
This?
26, 26, yeah.
That's the street. So
So
here's
that's the-
here's the main road. All this, where my mouse is right now, going all the way around the property, that was the property that the landowner had, and he subdivided it and built a bunch of houses on it. But
Right.
how do you get to each house? Well, he had to build a street, so he put a
So this is dead end, dead end.
Yes,
Dead
it's
end.
dead.
That one is
No,
dead.
yeah, but a cul-de-sac is a dead-end street that has that bulbous part at the end where you could turn around.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you know why they have it? It's very specific sizes. Do you know why they have it this way?
No.
So that a fire truck can turn around without
Oh, I see.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Garbage trucks, fire trucks. So your typical straight dead-end street, they got to back up all the way down the road, right?
Yeah.
But if they got this, they don't approve those kinds of streets anymore, or they shouldn't be. They should be having these ones, and they're very specific dimensions, so that the fire trucks can make U-turns in them.
I was thinking I see all the time like this. I was thinking this is for people, is make good that they can make the turn. I never thought about this people.
Yeah. So here I gave a little better outline of the property. You know how it's a square property over here, and then here's the street, the main road. And so they made in red, I highlighted in red the cul-de-sac street that was built on the guy's private land. Now, when he submits these plans for approval, he's got to state whether this street is going to be a private road or if he's going to dedicate it. What does that mean?
Dedicated
Yeah, what does that mean, dedicated?
to government. You give
They
that space
give it
to
the
government.
correct. And then it'll become a city street. But look, here
Right.
he named it. He named it West F Street, whatever. Okay, but you can name the street whatever you want. You know, it's on your land.
Mm.
And here's just a bigger tax map of, here's one from my town of Linden. There's a big tax map. And if you notice, it has number 25. This is number 25 tax map. But if you look at it, at the edges on each of the sides of the map, it shows you sheet 24, sheet 22, sheet 26, and sheet 30. That's where you were to take those other numbered maps, and if you could attach them to this one, and then you could build out the whole town by just attaching them like a Legos or like a puzzle, right?
Oh.
They tell you here, you're basically attaching sheet 24 on this side, sheet 22 on this side, and sheet 26 and 30 on this side. And it starts building out a bigger section of town, you know? So a licensed surveyor prepares the survey. It shows the location and dimensions of a parcel of land. It shows location, size, and shape of buildings and other structures or pavings that are on that property, fences, etc. So when a survey is used, well, when you're conveying a portion of the lot or placing a mortgage, determining legal descriptions, subdividing land, or anytime you do construction, municipality is going to want a survey of the property before they approve any plans. So a survey is a type of inspection a homeowner gets, right? But it's an inspection of the land itself. You can see where the boundaries are, what's on that property, if there's any illegal extensions from neighboring properties onto yours, or from your property onto theirs. Like this one where I zoomed into that back where they got that chain. So I actually, to the back of my lot, I actually have two properties, two different houses, their lots back to mine. So You can see one, he's got a chain link fence here for this short little distance, and then there's another one here that's got a wooden fence, 6-foot wooden fence, which then kind of veers off onto my property and the neighboring properties too. So he was off by 1.5 feet. I told him to put it back where it belongs.
You never having taken property?
Well, he put it back where it belonged. Built the new fence, he put the fence on the property line.
That
And
happened, right?
And he's actually got a shed that's almost right up to the fence.
He,
They built it too close to the property line.
he was upset when you told him.
Well, I don't know. He was I had an argument with that neighbor because I have no trees in my backyard anymore. But I got neighbors, they have trees all over. And this guy, his branches are always falling on my side, and I've even seen him throw branches over the fence onto my side. So I take them and I just pile them up against his fence over there. He was going to get a permit to knock down the fence and put up a new fence, right? And he had, I don't know why, he had an inspector come to the house. Maybe he was a friend of his. And I got a summons, a notice to remove all the debris in my yard. I'm like, first of all, how do you see any debris on my yard unless you illegally came onto my property? There's no way for you to see that area of land from the street.
Mm.
Even from the back neighbors, well, a 6-foot fence. What are you doing? Climbing up over it with a ladder and looking over into my yard?
Oh man.
Government is not allowed to do that. That's part of the illegal search and seizure. So you have to know your constitutional rights, right? So yeah, I started, arguing with the inspector over the premise that you shouldn't have been able to send me this summons because there's no way in hell you should have been able to see on my property unless you violated my rights of illegal search and seizure and trespassing onto my property. What did you do? Put a camera over the fence? I said, first of all, how did you see that there was a thing here? Because there's no way for you to possibly see. And he's like, oh, I just stuck the camera over the fence and I snapped the picture. And I was like, that's against the law. The Supreme Court has ruled that anything you cannot see normally with your eyes, just through the regular line of sight, is illegal search and seizure. You cannot you're coming onto my property. That's like why don't you just start using military equipment to look through the walls of my house to see if I did any construction in my house from the street? I mean, where's the limit on it? It has to be from the normal visual line of sight. So anyway, I got into an argument with this guy about a stack of wood that I had piled from the branches that he threw over there. And then whenever it comes about every several months where they're going to do a pickup, I'll drag it out, But they issued me a summons and it required a court hearing. It's like I couldn't even just like clean it up and then go there. So they were really busting my balls on this. So you know what? I was busting his balls back, right? I want to bust his chops. Anyway, I eventually got it dropped after they rescheduled it 3 times, the hearing. They eventually dropped it, after I showed them the picture that was all cleaned up, but what a pain in the ass, and this is inspectors, city inspectors, and he started getting nasty with me, the city inspector, like I had the right to I could do whatever I want, he pretty much said. And I was like, the hell you can. I was like, you want to take it to court? Let's do it. But you better show up. You're not just giving me a ticket that I got to show up. You better show up because I'm going to have some questions for you. And let's see how it pans out in court that you could do whatever you want. Right? And it eventually got dropped. I even had to complain to the mayor, but the mayor, he's useless. He's a garbage in the town. Okay.
Mm.
But anyway, this is the way that the survey works, and this is the way that you could see things, you could see how far off the property line the shed is, things of that nature. Different types of fences, if they go over a property line. All right, so here's my property. I guess in the fall when the grass was turning color. It looks like it's dead. It's not, just does that every winter. Anyway, you see from the curb, the surveyor put a wooden stake in the ground here. Okay. Why did the surveyor put a wooden stake in the ground? Well, because I already had a metal stake in the ground, and he dug up the grass around there where you could just reach down and you could flop it up and you could see where that stake was. So he didn't put one in the ground, he just put a wooden one, and he showed me where it is, and he put these at each of the corners of the property. See? Look how far off the property line it is.
Oh,
And then the other one.
yeah.
And if you were to look at my survey, the survey measurement actually starts at these points as well. So the measurement of my land was based off of these points and not from the actual curb. Because from the curb to here, the city has a right for the first 6 feet of the property. Actually, this tree's not even there anymore from this
Oh.
picture. Yeah, that tree ended up coming down with a storm. And you see the telephone pole right there. They're supposed to move that, which reminds me, I got to call PSE&G.
That street doesn't have no walk side, right?
No, there's no sidewalk over here now in this section of town.
Right,
In
right.
the corner on the other side of my block, there is a sidewalk that goes around. But on this street, there's no sidewalks.
So this is the line they put the stick they put it. So this land is not yours, right? This side?
It is mine, but the municipality has an easement right for the first 6 feet. So in this first 6 feet, you could find underneath the ground gas lines, the sewer pipes, you could find the water supply, you could put up an electrical line, electric pole, telephone pole for the utilities. They could do whatever if they wanted to. They could put up a sidewalk up over here.
All right. So that means this stick that you cannot make the fence in that area, something like that,
No, not in the front. It had the fence has to be in the back side.
in the back side.
Yeah, like you can see, even on this side, I got the fence right over here, and on the other side of the house, same thing. Except the other side, it's more of a white fence like this. I'm going to be replacing all these fences as well. You can see I got a neighbor with a wooden fence in the back, and there's a chain link fence back there. There's a chain link fence here. Like I got like 4 different kinds of fences around my property. So,
Oh,
all right. So once again, there's the tax map. Okay, so how do we measure elevation? Well, when it comes to condominiums or trying to show that your property is not in a flood zone, measurement of elevation is very important. So with condo descriptions, the unit's reference of a different floor number, well, they have to also have a measurement of the elevation from the floor to the ceiling. So what is zero elevation? The mean sea level at New York Harbor. The mean is the average, discounting
right.
when the water levels are higher during storm surges or when they're low when the tide goes out. You look at the average. What is the average sea level there? That's zero. That's zero elevation. That's the data. So large cities establish local official datums. Basically, they'll start that measurement from the mean sea level at New York Harbor, but then they'll work their way back. So zero elevation is the mean sea level at New York Harbor throughout the United States. And benchmarks are those permanent local reference points that aid surveyors in those measurements so that they don't have to go all the way to New York Harbor to start measuring elevation, at some point in time that was already done, and they put these other markers throughout the United States, which we call benchmarks,
Hmm.
that aid surveyors that say that as of this point where this benchmark is located, you are so many feet above sea level. And they can work their way from that benchmark instead of the actual marker, which is miles away. So on page 357, let's highlight the definition of datum and benchmarks.
Okay, I'm done.
And once again, here's this slide that has benchmarks, datums, monuments, meets and bounds, rectangular survey, and plat map, all the information you need to study about the survey stuff, the legal descriptions of land, all on one slide. You will get this stuff on exam. I'm telling you, you will. The chapter 19 stuff, you get just about all the stuff on your exams. The legal descriptions, and then when we get into the types of deeds, you need to know the 4 different types of deeds and the differences between them. And we're about to get into that right about now. So, what is a deed? A deed is a document that's used to transfer one's right, title, or partial interest in a property. You know, like their partial ownership interest in a parcel of land. So, is a deed proof of ownership, though? No, it is not. There are different forms of proof or evidence of title. But a deed is the document, it's the written instrument where an owner of real estate intentionally conveys their rights, like air rights or mineral rights, subsurface rights, to a property, or their title, their ownership, or their partial ownership interest in a parcel of real estate.
It's a legal document, right?
It is a legal document that's used to transfer that ownership. Yeah. It's like personal property is transferred by bill of sale, but real property is transferred by deed to convey either one's, not just the ownership of real estate, but also the rights, which can be transferred, they can be conveyed separately. They can be sold or leased separately of the land itself. Or you could have multiple owners on a property and only one of them wants to sell their interest, their ownership interest. So that's what they mean by interest. That's a partial ownership. Now, parties to a deed are the grantor, that's the owner. When you transfer your ownership from one person to the other, it is by grant. Okay. And remember, the words that end in OR is the person who's giving whatever the root word is. The words that end in EE is the one that's receiving it. So therefore, the grantor is the owner. That's the seller that's transferring that ownership. And the grantee, that's the buyer who's acquiring it.
Right.
So the grantor, the seller, has to sign the deed in order for it to be valid. The signature of the grantee, the buyer, is actually not required on the deed for that deed to be valid. However, their name has to be stated in the deed that the seller is giving the ownership to that person. How come the deed doesn't need to be signed by the buyer? Well, because the transfer of ownership takes place upon delivery and acceptance of the deed itself. So it doesn't matter when they sign it, and they don't need to be dated either. So deeds don't need to be dated because the transfer of ownership takes place upon delivery and acceptance of the deed itself. Deeds must be signed and dated and have all the signatures acknowledged by all the parties, confirming their identities by a notary, judge, attorney, or other trusted person like an elected politician. Trusted person. I always get a kick out of that. Before it could be recorded into the public record. So deeds are valid even if they're not recorded in the public record, though. It is, however, in both parties' interest, best interest, to record their interest in that real estate in the public record. Because if you sell me your property and you give me the deed, you signed it, I'm named in the deed, I'm the owner of that property now, right? Because I hold
Right.
the deed.
Yeah. Right.
But I didn't record it yet in the public record. Doesn't matter. I'm still the owner. If somebody trips and falls on that property now, who are they going to sue?
To buyer, the owner.
Well, are they going to sue you or are they going to sue me? You sold the property to me. You gave me the deed. I was named in the deed. You signed the deed and you gave it to me. So I'm now the owner of the property. If somebody trips and falls on that property, who are they suing?
That person gonna sue to that owner who bought that house, the property.
They're going to sue the person that's listed in the public record as the owner. See, I never
Oh,
recorded my interests in the public record. This is why it's the seller's best interest to make sure that that buyer now records their new ownership in the public record. So if something like this happens, that I'll be listed as the owner in the public record. So if somebody trips and falls, they're going to sue me and not the other guy who's still listed in the public records as the owner.
so you have to do it right away.
You should do it right away. But do you have to? No. There's no requirement by law that your ownership be recorded in a public record, but it's wise to. Here's another reason why it's in my best interest as the new owner to record my new ownership in the public record. What if you, as the seller, get a lawsuit judgment against you, and then somebody gets a judgment? They find out that you're listed as the owner of that property still, they could put a lien on that property. So if I recorded that I'm the new owner now, they couldn't put a lien on that property because you're no longer the owner of it. You follow? But
Yes.
if you never did, you're still listed in the public records as the owner. Somebody gets a judgment against you because they sued you and they won a lawsuit. They could place a lien on the property that you're listed as the owner. So there's several reasons why it's in everybody's best interest to make sure they actually do record their new ownership or no longer being an owner of a property in the public records. Okay, it's very important to. It's not required by law, but it's very important to.
So after, let's say I bought this house in 2015, how should I know that the other owner that he was here who did it? I just have to do my job. I just have to.
Your attorney should have ensured that, but
Okay.
you may want to call the attorney, just follow up, make sure that they actually did. But there's another way of doing it to make sure. You could search it in the tax records. You know, if the tax records are reflecting you as the owner, you were
Oh, okay.
the owner. Yeah. Okay, so there are 4 types of deeds now we're going to look at in New Jersey. And here are the 4 common types of deeds: the full covenant and warranty deed, the bargain and sale deed with covenants against Grantors Act, the bargain and sale deed without any covenants, and a quitclaim deed. So let's highlight on page 357 that a deed is a written instrument by which an owner of real estate intentionally conveys their right, title, or interest in a parcel of real estate. The owner who sells or gives the land is referred to as the grantor, while the new owner who acquires title is called the grantee. And then I put next to this chart, which shows in the book the 4 types of deeds, I wrote a little arrow there on each side. I put the word protection, and I put an arrow on each side. Least protection to the most protection. So the top of the list are the types of deeds that offer the most protection to the buyers, and the least protection to the least protection down at the bottom. So you got that full covenant and warranty deed. Then you have a bargain and sale deed with covenants against Grantors Act, which goes by several names: covenants against grantors or covenants versus grantors, or a special or limited warranty deed.
Which
And-
one has the most protection?
The full covenant and warranty deed. Even though those are the ones that offer the most protection of any of these deeds,
I'm
Uh,
sorry.
yeah, that's the one that offers the most protection of any of these deeds. But I'm going to explain to you when we get into them. We'll see which one you want. And then we have a bargain and sale deed. It just says bargain and sale. So there's no covenants included. What's a covenant? Do you recall?
Legal promise.
Which one?
The legal promise. Okay.
Okay.
And then we have a quick claim deed.
What is
That
that?
offers the least protection of any of the deeds. You guys have the highlights and you have all these notes written?
Yes. I'm done.
Yeah, just giving Raphael a minute here.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Got it.
So I put together a slide based on this. Actually, this slide is actually a pretty good imagery. They should include that in the book. I'm gonna ask if they can. Slide 38. Okay, so the warranty deed, the type of deed that offers the most protection is the warranty deed, also known as a general warranty deed or full covenant, full promise and warranty deed. Then we have the bargain and sale CAG deed. CAG stands for Covenants Against Grantors. But sometimes people write bargain and sale CVG. That's Covenants versus Grantors. You guys ever see lawsuit documents when someone's getting sued? It says either against this person against this person, or this person versus this person. That's just the
Yeah.
terminology, the phraseology that they use. You know, here whether they use against or versus, it's saying the same thing, right? It's also known as a special warranty or a limited warranty deed. And we'll find out why once we start going over each one of the individual deeds. And then we have the bargain and sale deed. Quiet. There's nothing else after that, right? It's just bargain and sale deed. That's a deed without any covenants. It's also known as a straight bargain and sale deed, and sometimes used in auctions, and they refer to it as a sheriff's deed. They write sheriff's deed on the top of it. Okay. So this is the straight bargain and sale deed where the sheriff's department, when they sell the properties at auction and they give the sheriff's deed, which is really a bargain and sale deed, the sheriff is just saying, I have the legal right to sell the property. I'm not guaranteeing you the quality of the title. So that's why it's one of those deeds that offer the least protection. And then lastly, we have a quit claim deed. Quit claim deed offers the least protections to the buyer. You don't even need to be the owner to sign it. Ooh. We'll get into that in just a moment. So, page 358. All you gotta do is just highlight the highlights. You don't need to be underlying these, but I underlined what each of the legal promises are being made in a full warranty deed here. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, you guys got that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So Let's go over each of the types of deeds right now, one at a time. We're going to start with the warranty deed here. The warranty deed provides the greatest protection of any of the deeds. It's also known as a full covenant and warranty deed, or full warranty, or general warranty deed. In this type of deed, these are the promises that are being made to the buyer. You got the covenant, which a covenant is a legal promise. So you have a covenant of seizin. It says that you seized of the land. The grantor warrants that they're the owner of the property and they have the right to convey the title to it. So it also states that they're in possession of the land, okay? They are seized of the land. The covenant against encumbrances. The grantor warrants that the property is free from any liens or encumbrances other than those that they've already disclosed, and they will defend it if anybody claims that there are other encumbrances which should not be there. So an encumbrance is a claim by another or a liability against real estate, like taxes, judgments, liens, restrictive covenants, easements, licenses, etc., that could diminish the use or value of the property, which the grantee, the buyer, was not previously made aware of. We got the covenant of quiet enjoyment. It's a guarantee that the title is good against third parties who may step forward and lay claim to the property. And it basically says that the seller will defend it in court if anybody claims that they're the rightful owners of the property. So that's the covenant of quiet enjoyment. The covenant of further assurance. The grantor promises to obtain any instruments needed to make title good and to produce any evidence that may be required in the court. Now, the interesting thing here is we also have the covenant of warranty forever. This promise states that if the warranty ever should fail, that somebody should step forward and be able to prove that they're the rightful owner of the property or have some right or interest in that property, the grantor, the seller, will reimburse the grantee, the buyer, for any losses sustained, provided they have the money. It's one thing to make these legal promises on a piece of paper. It's another thing to be able to follow up with them, to follow through with them, right? I can make you these promises, hey, I'll reimburse you for any loss, but what if I ran out of hard times and I'm broke now? What are you getting out of me? Right? So even though this is a warranty that offers the most protections of any deeds, you got to be kind of realistic about it too. So hopefully you got some title insurance too.
Oh.
So these covenants are not limited to matters that occurred during the time the owner, the grantor, owned the property. They extend back to all previous owners as well. How could anybody make such a promise? Right? You're not saying, the seller's not just saying, hey, I guarantee that as long as I've owned the property, I've done nothing to encumber it. I'm also guaranteeing you that since they started ownership of land here in this country, since this country began, I'm guaranteeing that there was never an improper transfer of land or any liens that have not been paid or whatever since the beginning of time that ownership records have been kept in the United States. That's a pretty lofty promise to make, huh?
Promise made to buy.
Okay. Then we have the bargain and sale deed, or the bargain and sale, CAG or CVG type deed. I think on exams they refer to it as CAG. I was always more attracted to CVG. That's what I always wrote in our sales contracts. However, today our sales contracts have been modified a bit. You no longer have to write down which type of deed the buyer's asking from the seller. Previously, we had to write it was a blank line and we had to write that down. And you got a lot of real estate agents that didn't study or pay attention in class, and they were writing down the wrong types of deeds there. I know I was having some listings where I had a buyer's agent writing down, we're looking for a full warranty deed. And I said, we're not offering a full warranty deed. You better rewrite that contract because there's no way in hell I'm having my client sign it. You know, we're not signing a contract because we're not offering a full warranty deed. We're offering a bargain and sale CAG or CVG type deed. So what does this deed say? Well, a bargain and sale deed with covenants against grantors act basically says that me as the owner of the property, I have done nothing to encumber this property as long as I've been the owner of it. I'm not guaranteeing that time that anybody else owned it in the past throughout history. I'm only saying that as long as I've been the owner, I've done nothing to encumber it. You want to find out anybody who may have owned it before me? Do a title search and get title insurance policy. That's what a title search is for. Okay. So this is actually the most common type of deed that's given in New Jersey these days. So it's the bargain and sale CVG or CAG type deed, covenants against grantors, where the owner is just making the promise that I've done nothing to encumber the property while it's been in my possession. As far as anybody that's owned it before me, order yourself a title insurance policy, which they'll do a thorough search of the public records throughout history to ensure that there were no improper transfers. And once they've confirmed that through their research, they're going to issue you an insurance policy against loss. So if anybody should ever step forward, they will reimburse you. The insurance company will insure you against loss. Now, there are two types of title insurance. Okay. There's a seller's policy. I'm sorry, there's a buyer's policy and there's a lender's policy. So, for instance, if somebody should step forward and be able to prove that they're the rightful owner and you have to give up the property to them, what about the mortgage loan you have on the property? Well, if you got the lender's policy, that would pay off any balance to the lender. And if you got the buyer's policy, that'll pay off any money you've got into this property to date.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important that you get both policies, and your attorneys should let you know that during this time when they're ordering title insurance. They should let you know that there are two different policies and suggest to you that you get them both and explain to you what each one does. Okay, so there's no guarantees in this type of deed about any previous owners, and the current owner simply states that they personally have done nothing to encumber the property while they've been in possession of it. So that's why it's sometimes referred to as a special or limited warranty type deed. So this is the most commonly used type deed in New Jersey, along with title insurance policy. Okay, so everybody got these highlights?
Yeah.
And then you also got my notes up here. All right.
Let me take the.
So now we got the bargain and sale type deed, also known as a straight bargain and sale type deed. It's a straight bargain and sale deed. There are no covenants against grantors after that. No CVG, no CAG, nothing written after it. It simply says bargain and sale deed. This is a totally different deed than the bargain and sale CAG type deed. Do not get lazy and mean to say bargain and sale CAG deed and just say bargain and sale deed, because they're two totally different deeds. The straight bargain and sale deed without any covenants says that the seller has the right to convey the title, the ownership to the property, but they're not making any other promises. as to the quality of the title, that there's no other liens or disputes to the ownership or anything like that. They're just saying, hey, we have the legal right to sell the property. That's all this type deed is saying.
Oh,
It's not even saying that, hey, as the owner, I'm guaranteeing you that as long as I've owned the property, I've done nothing to encumber it. It's not even saying that. It's just saying, hey, I got the legal right to sell this property. And that's why it's commonly used in sheriff's sales, foreclosures, and tax sales to transfer the
Oh.
ownership. So there's no express warranties as to quality of the title. And the grantee, that's the buyer, has little recourse if defects appear later. So caveat emptor, that's how you pronounce that. It's not pronounced caveat emptor the way that it's spelled. It's pronounced caveat emptor. In Latin, it means let the buyer beware. Do your own research, do your own due diligence before you purchase this property. Caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. Add that term to your definition list of Latin words. See, we learned a little bit of Latin in this class too, not just real estate language, but Latin language too. Old school Latin though. Okay, everybody got these highlights?
Yep.
Yes.
Then lastly, we have a quitclaim deed, which provides the least protection of any deed. It carries no covenants or warranties whatsoever. It doesn't even imply that the person who's signing the deed is the owner or has any rights or interest in this property. By signing a quitclaim deed, you're just giving up any rights or interests if you have any. Now, signing a quitclaim deed, you could just as effectively transfer the ownership and any rights that you actually do possess in the property to someone, just as much as a full covenant and warranty deed. However, it is not making any promises or guarantees or implications that you have any interest in the property whatsoever. It's most often used for simple transfers of ownership within a family, or transferring property during divorce settlements, or to clear up clouds on a title when there's a break or a gap in the chain of title. So once again, a quitclaim deed can transfer the ownership just as effectively as a full warranty deed can if the grantor has good title to grant those interests in the first place. So let's do these highlights. And then you may actually want to take a screenshot of this because I kind of spell it out a little bit more detail right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on. Oh, we have to write it down, that thing. Just as effectively, yes.
So let me know when you got it.
Got it.
Okay.
Everybody.
I did not write it down, that thing. A
Okay.
quitclaim deed can transfer ownership.
And then you got a couple sample deeds, blank ones here in the book, courtesy of Allstate Legal, which is actually based in Cranford, right down the street from me, where I live. They make all these legal documents and official stamps, corporate seals and books and all kinds of legal documents and notary stamps and all kinds of things like that there. And I'm a notary. Ooh, that reminds me, I got to renew my notary license. Got it right here.
Oh, you do notary
I got
too,
it right
huh?
there in front of me.
You do notary too?
I'm sorry?
You do notary.
Yeah, I got my notary license as well.
Oh. For that license, what do you have to do? You have to take some classes?
No, you just got to get sponsored by your local politician,
Oh, okay.
your local senator. So Back when I first got my notary license, you had to go introduce yourself to the senator and have them sponsor you. You know, they don't know who you are, you know, but yet they're supposed to sponsor you. It's the dumbest law, you know, that you're trustworthy and all this crap that they're sponsoring you. But now you don't even need to meet with them. You could just sign, you could renew it online, and your senator will approve it remotely.
Oh, wow.
They don't even meet with you. It's the dumbest thing. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. So I have to renew my notary license within 90 days of this notice. You're required to file an online
How
application.
oftenly do you have to renew it?
That's,
Every,
it's good for like 5 years.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's like every 5 years. Let's see. I'll have to pay notary requirement, paying the commission fee of $30. $25 filing fee plus an online portal fee of $5. That's $30. I love how the state just rips you off all the time. You know, it makes less paperwork for them and it's easier for them, but then they charge you a $5
That
convenience
is true.
fee
Yeah.
for
Oh,
something
man.
that you have to do online. Like it's not like a convenience fee. Okay, well, do I have an option to drop it off? Because I'll drop it off. No.
No.
So why am I being charged a convenience fee if this is my only option?
Mm.
Perfect example of New Jersey politicians raping us at every opportunity they get.
Yeah, that's true.
Everybody get all these notes
Yeah.
now?
Mhm.
Yeah.
A real estate license, every 2 years we have to renew it,
Correct.
right? So
Correct.
$100? Is
Yeah,
that
one
$100?
for salespersons and referral agents, it's $100 renewal every 2 years. Yep.
So that means
And
$600 in a
when
year.
do you need to renew it by?
Huh?
And when do you need to renew it by?
630.
I'm sorry.
Odd number here. 630, June 30th.
Oh, yes. You threw me off 6:30. I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah, June
June
30th.
30th, sorry.
Yeah, correct.
And 2 weeks before or something? No.
2 months before you need to complete your CE before you can renew it.
Yeah.
It's a salesperson license, not the referral agent. Referral agent doesn't require CE.
April 30th.
Yep, April 30th of the renewal year.
Right.
All right.
So
Okay,
if
let's go.
you renew every 2 years, right?
Everybody renews at the same time, every 2
Okay.
years.
Okay, got it.
All right, let's go over the anatomy of a deed now. All right, so what are the parts of a deed? Let's dive into that. You have the grantor. They have the legal capacity to execute and sign the deed. You have to be of sound mind and legal age, right? You have the grantee who has to be named with reasonable certainty that they can be readily identified. They have to be named in the deed. You have to state the consideration. That's the full purchase price. There is the granting clause, which is the heart of the deed that explains what exactly is being sold or transferred. And following the granting clause is always something called the habendum clause. Actually, that's often an exam question just in itself. What is the clause that follows the granting clause and begins with the words to have and to hold? The habendum clause.
Habendum clause.
Okay. So the granting clause, anytime something was stated in the granting clause that needs further explanation or clarification, for instance, like the percentage of ownership or things of that nature, or if you're naming a remainder man, that stuff needs to be put into the habendum clause. Okay.
Mm.
And it begins with the words to have and to hold. Okay. And then we have a legal description of the real estate. What are the 3 legal descriptions of land? We just went over them. Meets and bounds.
Meets and bounds, then
Governing or rectangular survey, and
memorandum.
the plat map.
Plat.
The map of a subdivision. Yep, the plat map.
Plat.
All right, that needs to be stated in the deed as well. So deeds do not need to be dated in order to be valid, and they don't need to be signed by a buyer either, unless and until they try to record it in the public records in the county where all the land ownership records are kept. And then they need to sign it, and their signature needs to be acknowledged to prevent forgeries before it can be recorded.
So these do not have to be dated, like you have to do it right away. That means, right?
No, so I'm selling you my property. I got a deed to my property right here, and you're named as the buyer in the deed. I, as the seller, need to sign and date it, or just sign it. And then I hand it to you. The moment you accepted it, you became the owner. The transfer of ownership takes place upon delivery and acceptance of the deed itself. That's why they don't need to be dated or signed by the buyer, because the moment that I handed it to you and you accepted it, you became the owner. Now, before you could record it in the public records, you need to sign it and date it, and your signature needs to be acknowledged to confirm that you are who you say you are, to prevent forgeries.
So both dates should be different, right? If when as a seller, when you sign it, might be a different date. When I sign it, different date.
Well, once again, they don't need to be dated. They don't be signed or dated unless you're recording it in the public records. And then at that time that you're signing it, you would sign it and date it, and the notary would check your ID and all that stuff.
I see. Got it. Thanks.
All right, so here are those legal requirements to convey the deed, which I just went over on the previous slide. You could highlight there that deeds do not need to be dated in order to be valid, but also right there, or signed by the buyer, unless they want to record it. That's page 364.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Let me write it down. Or yeah.
Professor, question.
Sure.
So all these step for the deed, when you buy property, your lawyer is in charge to do that all to take care from the deed, right?
Yeah, your lawyers should be handling these things, but they're human too, and there's plenty of incompetent lawyers out there. So you really should make sure that everybody's doing their job in this process. Not us as real estate agents. We make sure everybody's doing their job as far as the attorney review and the inspections and dealing with those issues. But when it comes to actually recording documents in the public record, that's usually put on the attorneys to do. So it's up to the buyer and the seller to make sure their attorneys are doing what they're supposed to be doing. I've had an instance before that it was not my client, it was just a friend of mine, but I became a friend of hers, and she didn't know that I was a real estate agent, and put her property on the market for sale. She found out I was a real estate broker later, and then she then she started asking me questions because she was having trouble with her transaction. She listed the property for sale. She got a buyer, went under contract. They did the inspections, they went through everything. They did the title search and survey towards the end of the transactions before they close, and that's when a problem was uncovered, when they did the title search. It shows that when she bought the property, the guy she bought the property from had a mortgage loan, but her mortgage loan paid off that mortgage loan, right? And then paid off the realtors, and the owner got the proceeds in excess of the value of what was left on his mortgage loan, the balance, right? So the attorney should have recorded in the public records that seller's loan was paid off, but they never did. So what do you do now? That creates a problem because now the buyer's like, hey, we did a title search and it shows that you've got not just the loan that you got when you bought the house, but also that previous loan still was not paid off. It's showing as a lien on the property still. There was no satisfaction of lien added to the public records. All right, easy problem, right? Just go to that previous seller's lender and tell them, hey, you need to record the satisfaction of mortgage, right? And their attorney was supposed to have made sure that that got done, but they didn't.
Forgot.
She goes and tries to do that. Only one problem. That lender went out of business.
Oh,
So how do we get that satisfaction of mortgage lien added to the public records?
hmm.
You had to the bank and
You'd have to. Well, the lender is out of business. They're not there no more.
yeah. But in that case, probably you had to go to the bank and make sure the bank they give you the letter to do the record, right? To
What bank? The seller's lender, the one that went out of business,
went out of business.
went out of business. So
Yeah,
now how do you get the letter showing that the loan was paid back and satisfied?
that's trouble.
So I told her, I was like, well, you got title insurance when you bought the property, right? Let the title insurance company deal with it. Before you do that, just contact your attorney. But your attorney should be able to clear it up. So she gets on the phone with the attorney and he tells her, that's your problem now. Click.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? Call your title company up, your title company. You got the paperwork for your from when you bought the house. Go through it. There should be something there about your title insurance. You bought title insurance, right? And she's like, yeah, I know I paid for title insurance. And I was like, okay, well, then contact the title insurance company and they'll clear it up. She can't find the paperwork for title insurance. I was like, you sure you bought it? She's like, yeah, I gave the attorney the money. Yeah, we'll call your attorney up. He should have a copy of it in his records.
Yeah. Yeah.
She calls up the attorney and he's like, that's your problem. And she's like, well, I gave you the money for the title insurance. Did you buy it or not? And he's like, listen, this is not my problem anymore. It's your problem. Very helpful attorney, huh? And at this point, what do? Sue the attorney, maybe? So I told her, I was like, you know what you got to do? You got to get an attorney and sue your attorney. Yeah, attorneys don't mind suing each other, right?
No.
But nobody would touch it because that attorney is now a New Jersey Superior Court justice. And all these attorneys are afraid that if they sue him, then what if they ever have to appear before him in court? He's not going to be, giving them any favors or lenient towards them because that was the attorney that came after me and sued me. So all these attorneys are scared to go after a New Jersey Superior Court justice. So she couldn't find an attorney willing to sue him. I was like, well, then you need to file a complaint. If you file a complaint against the board, that holds those licenses for attorneys, once they get like 2 or 3 complaints on the record about them, their insurance goes through the roof. It gets very expensive. So you'll get his attention by filing a formal complaint. So she said, okay, so she went down, she tried to file a formal complaint. However, do you know that to file a complaint against an attorney, it costs about $5,000? That's the filing fee to file a complaint against an attorney. It's kind of like,
wow.
It's kind of like a protection for the attorney. Who's going to file a complaint against you if it's going to cost them $5,000 to file a complaint? And she's like, I'm not doing that. I don't got that money to be paying $5,000 to file a complaint against the guy. So I was like, well, then you could go to the state attorney general's office and just hope they're not part of the same political party because then they may not be so willing to follow through with it. And if that's not the case, maybe you go to the country's attorney general, escalated up to that level. And she's like, she never ended up doing anything with that. But as time went on, she was able to finally clear it up. She hired another title insurance company, paid for title insurance, and was able to get them to clear it up. Cost her a bundle of money in order to do it. And 2 years later. So you think that buyer hung around for 2 years? No. But see, sometimes people are required to do things. Don't just assume that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. This attorney did not. And then he gave her all kinds of attitude years later when she needed it, his help. And it cost her more money to do another title search. He never ended up, by the way, buying the title insurance. He just put the money in his pocket. That's why he was blowing her off. If she filed a complaint against him with the Bar Association, she may have been able to even get his license yanked for that. Stealing clients' money, especially if it was a habit, And now this guy's a New Jersey Superior Court Justice.
Wow.
Yeah. They pulled some real winners out of retirement, too. Some of these guys sitting on in some of these seats got dementia. Like I had somebody sue me once for my in my business. I don't know what it was about. I don't even know who this person is. Okay, but I had somebody sue me. Do you know that when somebody sues you in New Jersey, they got to serve you with papers, right? That you're being sued, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How do those papers need to be served? Anybody know?
By mail.
By mail? You don't need a sheriff's officer or a process server? Well, those are two ways that it usually gets done, and common ways. Or you could send it by mail. Does it need to be certified mail?
Yeah.
No. It could be sent by regular mail, and the person just swears that they sent it. So this guy swore that he sent the papers to serve me on a lawsuit. In the meantime, I had an attorney on retainer for my brokerage. So if I ever get any lawsuit papers, I just hand it over to the attorney, and the attorney will deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
I never got anything sent to me from this person. So obviously, I never showed up to court, and I got a default judgment against me. So now I was like, what the hell is this? I got the paperwork from the judgment from the courts, but I never got any other paperwork. So I was like, you know what? I had my attorney now. We did trying to undo this, however attorneys do it. He had to reach out to the judge and try working this out, letting him know that we were never served, but it doesn't matter because the guy swore that he served it. But either way, as a court, I lost this lawsuit and owed this guy like tens of thousands of dollars, who I have no idea who he is. And then he had a sheriff's officer pull the money out of my bank accounts, including the escrow account that was clearly labeled escrow. And I was like, whoa, first of all, they should have never touched money from an escrow account because that's not my money. Those are other people's money, And it was basically a nightmare I had to go through. And so the judge started like understanding what the attorney was saying and started reversing some of the judgment, but not the whole judgment against me. And it was like, why don't we just go to court over this again? Because I was never served. It's clear I was never served, Couldn't get him to redo the whole thing, but got him to try to reimburse the money that was taken from the escrow account.
Right.
Okay. But the judge kept getting the wrong numbers. And then he was giving the credit to the wrong person. He was giving more awards to the other guy. And it's like, dude, what's wrong with you? You're agreeing with the lawyer, but then you're messing up on the paperwork. The guy had like Alzheimer's or dementia. Like he can't keep track of stuff. New Jersey had a shortage of judges, so they were pulling a lot of judges out of retirement. If you guys recall, presidents are the ones that appoint judges, unless they're elected locally. They could be appointed locally or elected locally, unless they're higher up judges, then they get appointed by presidents. Okay. So we were on a shortage of them because people were just not appointing judges, and they were pulling them out of retirement. And sometimes you deal with this kind of nonsense.
Oh my God.
Hopefully it's better now, by now, hopefully. Here is the entire anatomy of a deed that I made this slide up for you. You guys may want to check it out. May want to, because it has everything you need to know here, pretty much with a full explanation and definition of these words. Let me see what slide we're on so I can take note of this slide here. Yeah. 46. All right. So let's go over it really quick. Hello, Daniela. Okay. The grantor, that's the seller. They need to be 18 years of age or older to effectively convey, or the contract may be voided. They must have legal capacity to execute and sign the deed. They have to be of sound mind and legal age. Okay. Now, even though the law does not allow minors to be married anymore in New Jersey, there's still a law on the books. Our politicians, they changed the law.
Legally married.
Minors cannot be married anymore in New Jersey, even with parental consent. However, they changed the law. They still have a law on the books that says that a married minor can sign the deed to help convey the ownership. So, for exam purposes, a married minor can be considered an adult and can transfer the ownership. Okay, but in real life, there's no such thing as a married minor. Okay, so a grantee is the buyer, and they must be named in the deed with reasonable certainty so that they can be readily identifiable. Then you have to have consideration. You guys remember what consideration is? There are 3 legal forms of consideration. Consideration is something of value that the parties give or receive from each other in a contract. So to be valid, all deeds must contain a clause acknowledging receipt of something as consideration. That's whatever the parties give or receive from each other of value, like legal tender, that's money or a mortgage loan. It could be a fair exchange of goods or services, like with bartering, or it can be love and affection. In other words, a gift to like a relative, But this should be accompanied by a letter stating that it is, in fact, a gift. You don't just write down $1 in love and affection. New Jersey law requires the full sale price be listed, unless it's a gift, and then you could put down $1 and then accompany it by an affidavit, which is a sworn statement explaining that it is a gift. Okay. And then
Granting clause.
The granting clause, that's the heart of any deed, explaining the type of deed and what exactly is being transferred. The title, the rights, the interests, how the new owners are taking ownership, like the type of tenancy in severalty, tenancy in common, joint tenancy, or by the entirety. And if anything needs further explanation, that would happen in the habendum clause, which follows the granting clause. For instance, if there's more than one owner that's not married to each other, one of the owners put up 75%, the other puts up 25% of the cash. If you don't state in the deed that you're 75-25 ownership, then it's 50-50. So you'd really want to make sure it's stated in the deed. And where would that be written? In the habendum clause, where this further clarifies things. Now, the habendum clause is the clause that always follows the granting clause, and it begins with the words to have and to hold. And its provisions must match with whatever's said in the granting clause. You're just clarifying those things that were written in the granting clause. So it should never be contradictory to anything that's in the granting clause. And it's just further clarifies things like percentage of ownership, or if you needed to name a remainder man, if it was a life estate that was being conveyed. Then you needed a legal description of the real estate. What are the three legal descriptions of land? Meets and bounds, rectangular or government survey, and a plat map. So although lot numbers and address are helpful in describing the property, they're not considered legal descriptions. Then we have exceptions and reservations that you may add to the deed. These are any deed restrictions. You would add them in this section here. And what do we call estates and land that are based on a restriction? Fee determinable, defeasible fee, or conditional fee estate. And we went over that in chapter 6 back on page 104. And then the signature of the grantor, that's the seller. The sellers must sign the deed. The buyer's signature and date are only required if the deed is being recorded in the public records. But the deed is still valid without them. But the seller's signature is required. And what is an acknowledgement? It provides evidence that the signatures are genuine to prevent forgery, usually witnessed by a notary, a judge, attorney, or an elected official. So these people would have sworn that they either know who you are, or they checked your ID and you appeared before them and signed that document in front of them. Okay? Anybody need to snap a picture of this slide, or you already did?
I did it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so what are the requirements to convey property? We got to note any exceptions or reservations accepting the title. You need the signature of the seller, the grantor, that acknowledgement that we just read about, and delivery and acceptance. Although implied delivery is possible, that's very abnormal, okay? So you need actual delivery and acceptance of the deed. That's why deeds don't need to be dated or signed by the buyer, and they're still considered valid. So let's highlight what consideration is. And what an affidavit is. So we learned a couple of words that begin with the letter A. Affidavit, acknowledgement, and then we got some right words that begin with A. You need to study them because they're going to put them all as multiple choice answer options on some question somewhere. So you need to know what an affidavit, what an acknowledgement, and what those other words are that begin with A's that they're going to bring up.
Affidavit is like a notary, right?
An affidavit is it's a confirmation that a notary, a judge, an attorney, or an elected official, a politician, elected politician, either knows you, it's a document that shows that they know you, or they checked your ID and they're stating that your signature is genuine
Mm.
to prevent those forgeries. So no, a notary is not an affidavit. I'm sorry, not an acknowledgement. An acknowledgement can be done, it can be performed by a notary, but a acknowledgement is just like you nodding your head. Have you checked their ID, or do you know this person? Yeah, but you're doing that on paper. Okay, you're just swearing on paper that you check their IDs or you know who this person is to prevent
That's
forgery.
affidavit. That's affidavit.
That's evidence to prevent forgeries. Correct.
I see.
All right.
Mhm.
And an affidavit is simply a sworn statement. You guys got these highlights?
Not this one.
Yep.
Yeah, I did it. Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So now we're just going, all those things I had on that one custom slide, we're just going through the notes and doing the highlights and writing the notes next to them now in the book. Okay. So the habendum clause follows the granting clause, and the habendum clause begins with the words to have and to hold. Its provisions must agree with those set down in the granting clause. So when it's necessary to define or explain ownership to be enjoyed by the grantee, that habendum clause would follow the granting clause. Now, like in my notes, I would write here, it further clarifies terms stated in the granting clause like percentage of ownership or naming a remainder man, because it doesn't say all that here in the book.
Right. Good. Oh, got it. Got it.
Okay, good.
There you all got it?
Yeah, got it.
Yes.
You too, Danielle, you got it?
Got it.
Crickets.
Mhm.
Oh, down here at the bottom, you see I wrote the notes for exceptions and reservations, restrictive covenants, chapter 6, page 104. I also wrote the types of estates that are based on a restriction: fee determinable, defeasible, and conditional fee estate.
Let
All
me
right.
see out there.
You got it, right?
Yep.
Only
Okay.
one line. One line. Fee deter.
Oh, fee determinable, defeasible fee, and conditional fee estate.
Almost done. Almost done.
Sure.
Yes. Okay. Good.
All right.
Mm.
All right, so the signature of the grantor is required on the deeds, but So the grantor is the seller. So to be valid, a deed has to be signed by all of the sellers, all the grantors named in the deed. A grantor's signature may be signed by an attorney in fact acting under a power of attorney. That's the specific written authority that's granted to somebody to sign the documents on someone else's behalf. Right? You guys remember what a power of attorney is?
Yes, that's a
Now, here's an interesting fact. You know, deeds are only valid while you're alive. Well, the same thing goes for these power of attorneys. A power of attorney, someone else, you're granting someone else to sign documents on your behalf when you're not there. But that's only valid while you're alive. So if an attorney in fact signed any documents on your behalf, it's usually necessary to prove that the person who gave that power of attorney is still alive when those documents were signed.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that going to be done? Well, the person who granted that authority should appear at a later date before a notary. And it's basically the notary will just sign a document that says this person has appeared before me on this date. And they check their ID and whatever. Okay. That's enough. So that document, you know, if you appear before a notary, well, then you were alive the previous day when it was signed, right? So as long as it was after that date, the documents were signed, you appear before a notary, it shows that you were alive, so that power of attorney was valid for any thing that they signed on. So that's it. So to prove a person was alive at the time the attorney in fact signed a document on their behalf, they would need to appear before a notary public, produce their ID, and the notary will confirm they had appeared before them that day. This document would then be added to the public record for recording with the deed and the power of attorney. It's good to add all of these documents into the public record. This way, if someone ever does a title search, they're not going to be like, well, who's this person that signed this document? Oh, they were granted a power of attorney. Well, where's the power of attorney? You know, now somebody's going to have to do all kinds of research in order to prove it. You know, it's good to have all this documentation recorded in the public records. If you guys want to snap a picture of this slide, be my guest. I'm also going to make a little notation about adding these notes to the book on page 365. Right?
okay.
Mm-hmm.
An acknowledgement. This is all about an acknowledgement here, but I got highlighted what it basically is explaining. An acknowledgement is a declaration made by a person signing a document before a notary, public, or authorized public officer. The acknowledgement provides evidence the signature is genuine to prevent forgeries. And although an acknowledgement is not required to make a deed valid, in New Jersey, all deeds, mortgages, and other documents must be acknowledged before a notary, or must be acknowledged before they can be
recorded.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I always misspell that word, acknowledgement. I always put an E at the end of acknowledge. Ah.
Yep.
Dr. G, right?
Yeah, but there is no E there. Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, they put a little note here that for purely a practical point of view, a deed that has not been acknowledged is not a satisfactory instrument. Although an unrecorded deed is valid between the grantor and the grantee, it does not protect against claims by subsequent innocent purchasers. To help assure good title, a grantee should always require acknowledgement of the grantor's signature on the deed so that it may be recorded. Yeah, well, the grantor needs to sign the deed, and the buyer needs to be named in the deed. And in order for them to then add it to the public record, then the buyer needs to sign it and have their signature acknowledged. So, but everybody's signature should be acknowledged. The purpose is to prevent forgery. All right. So how does delivery and acceptance work? Because the transfer of ownership takes place upon delivery and acceptance in the deed. But this has been going on for centuries. So how does this work? Well, how does it work in the Middle Ages? How about that? When few people were literate, they didn't know how to read or write. You guys ever remember seeing? I don't know if you guys recall this stuff. There used to be these PSAs. That's short for public service announcements on the local television channels. I don't know. When I was growing up, we always had these PSAs in the form of cartoons for children. They had those Schoolhouse Rock. It was called. I forget what channel it was on, channel 9 or 11, and it was like. They had that thing teaching children about how politics, how they pass bills, and how they make laws. They had ones teaching about math. They had ones teaching about, reading and writing. Like, you guys remember the one, conjunction, junction, what's your function? It was like a musical and a cartoon and a whole thing so that it could teach children about what a conjunction is. And then they had that one, what is a bill? Okay. Well, think of those cheesy cartoon characters as I read a little story for you as we learn about how delivery and acceptance actually takes place. But let me first read this paragraph. Before the transfer of title by conveyance can take effect, delivery and acceptance must exist. There must be an actual delivery of the deed by the grantor and either an actual or implied acceptance by the grantee. Title is said to pass when the deed is delivered. So the effective date of the transfer of title from the grantor to the grantee is the date of delivery of the deed itself. Now that's all fine and dandy if you know how to read or write. How did they transfer ownership of real estate in the Middle Ages? When only rich people, the kings and queens and the people of stature were the only ones that were allowed to read or write or to know how to read or write.
Mm.
This is a way to keep
They don't have no paper.
this is a way to keep a population of people dumbed down. You keep them uneducated. This is why even today you're seeing certain political parties and political interests want to be in control of education so that they could indoctrinate children into their way of thinking from the earliest grades up until college even. And it's worked. And that's why we're seeing so many stupid kids now out there, even graduating high school and college. Did you see that one girl? She graduated high school with honors and she doesn't know how to read or write. Did you guys hear that story about her?
No, I hear. But I see. I remember I work with kids. They coming from the high school. And they don't know who is the United States president. They don't know what is the capital of the United States. They don't know.
President is here. I love those interviews. Where it's like the man on the street. He goes asking interview questions to people. That's the kind of stuff that Charlie Kirk used to do, and then he expanded on that over the years. But you always see that there's these beginner journalist kids out there that they're out there like that. They go to these protests and stuff and they ask questions, or sometimes they just ask people like randomly, like standing on a boardwalk, or give you a little knowledge quiz. And it boggles my mind how dumb people are.
Yeah.
They don't know the difference between a state, a country, or a continent, let alone where they're located. You give them a globe, you give them a map, and they couldn't even find the place. It's incredible how stupid the next younger generations are, and that's sad. That's sad. That's not good for our country. We need to have an educated youngsters, but instead we're teaching them about that, hey, if you feel like you should want to be a girl, you can be a girl, even though you're a biological boy. But that kind of nonsense is overtaking our schools. When we start using phrases like your truth. You got to believe what your truth is. What do you mean your truth? It's either false or it's true. There's no version of a truth, for anybody. But I think that was introduced when they're trying to talk about like racism and things of that nature. But that has expanded into other areas, like your truth about what the science is on something. Remember, because people are always like, trust the science, when it was like coming to us getting those jabs for the COVID things, right? But then now it's like, well, there's been a consensus in science that it's safe. All right. First of all, there are no consensus in science. Science, by virtue, is an argument to always try to seek the truth or differences or what the reality is by questioning everything. People don't like to be challenged these days, though, I guess. But anyway, keeping people dumbed down is the way that you keep control of the nation. It's easier to keep control of the younger people by keeping them stupid and then brainwashing them into your beliefs. Okay, well, how did it work in the Middle Ages? Because it was the same way when you had kings and queens and emperors. They didn't want people to rise up against them and be smart and learn stuff. They only wanted people of stature to have knowledge, right? It works that way around the world even today. Look at some of the countries like Afghanistan. Over there, it's against the law for women to drive or to go to school. When we were there, we were establishing schools and teaching women and stuff. Now they broke all that stuff up since we bugged out. So, but I just heard the other day that Trump wants that base back in Bagram. So let's see what happens with that. Now let's take a look at this. How did it work in the Middle Ages when few people were literate, meaning they did not know how to read or write? Picture these cartoon characters from the Schoolhouse Rock where they're teaching these lessons. And I'll use the little cheesy voice to explain it, okay? So how did the transfer of ownership take place when people did not know how to read or write? Well, it worked like this. In England, during the Middle Ages, when few people were literate, transfer of title occurred in the following manner. The seller took the buyer to the field in question, and they walked the boundaries. This was known as the beating of the bounds. Then the seller reached down, and they took up a clod of earth that represented the whole field, and they handed it to the buyer. At the moment that that buyer seized the clod, they became the owner of the land. Today, a document is used instead of a clod of earth, but title still said to transfer at the moment of delivery and acceptance of the deed, and the owner still said to be seized of the property. So the word season still denotes ownership and control. Can you picture those little cartoon characters walking around the boundaries of the property? The owner is walking the buyer around the boundaries of the property, picks up a piece of the dirt from the field, hands it to him, says, "Congratulations, you're now the owner." Yeah, I mean, how do you prove that later if somebody should come by later and question it? Well, I guess that's why we had a lot of people conquering lands, right? Through war and battle. Yeah, how do you prove who owns what when there's no paperwork, there's no maps, there's no nothing, right?
Yeah.
No public records.
And even when you have that, throughout history, people were always battling each other and taking property. I love it when the young generation of people, they talk about, when we're talking about real estate, they're like, the United States is we're living on stolen land. So you want to give up your house to somebody, to a Mexican? Is that what it is? Because your claim is that we stole the land from Mexicans, or is it that we stole land from the Indians? I guess in the southern states, they're complaining, oh, well, this was all Mexican lands. Okay, well, where did the Mexicans steal it from? I mean, it wasn't theirs since the beginning of time. They stole it from Indians, Even the Mexicans stole it from Indians, Land, if you don't believe in true ownership, listen, there is conquerors, land has been conquered. Even Indian tribes have stolen land from other Indian tribes. They conquer it, they've been battling it, and then they claim the ownership throughout history. We didn't do anything wrong coming here and claiming this land. It's what has been done throughout history, throughout the beginning of time. People have been conquering lands and claiming it as their own. There's not a country or a continent on this planet that has not occurred. So it's very ingenuine or just uneducated people that are making these false statements, that, oh, we're living on stolen land or what have you. Okay, well, look back in history a little bit further. I bet the people who you're advocating for stole that land as well. All right, stole it. Okay. Anyway, this is an interesting little story, huh? About how transfer of ownership took place in the Middle Ages. But today we're using a document called a deed to do that transfer of ownership. And when you're in possession of that property, it's still said that you're seized of the land. They still use that same terminology. Okay, so how do corporate deeds work? How do execution of corporate deeds work? Who signs the deed on behalf of a corporation, which is a fictitious person? It's a fictitious entity. Well, who manages and operates a corporation?
Board of directors.
The board of directors. You got a president up there or a CEO, but any major decisions when it comes to selling off property or buying property, that needs to be run by the board of directors. The CEO cannot do that on their own. They need to run it by the board of directors because everything they do should be in the best interest of their investors. Otherwise, their investors are not going to keep investing if the company keeps doing things that are not advantageous to the investors, right? Makes sense. Even though in recent years we've seen a lot of corporations bend the knee to groups like Black Lives Matter and whatnot in fear of being called racist or what have you, and they started backing them publicly and giving them money, and we know that whole thing is a scam. I mean, the name we all agree with. All lives matter. But okay, wait, let's not say that because that comes out as a racist trope now. But Black Lives Matter. Okay, we all agree with that. But that group was formed by a bunch of people who were scam artists. They stole the money to buy. It didn't go to help any Black communities or a single Black person out there other than themselves. To buy fancy cars and real estate. And as a matter of fact, those people are all in jail now that started it. For frauds and all kinds of other things. Now, generally, the board of directors, they should be looking out for the best interest of their shareholders. Otherwise, you have things that could backfire on them, on the stock if they don't. And then who's going to want to invest in the company? We all seen what happened with Bud Light, right? One decision by one president of a section of Anheuser-Busch that covers the Bud Light beer. They did that advertisement without running it by the board of directors, and it kind of backfired on them because they were pushing a hot button topic. And they should remain neutral on these types of things when you're selling a product like food or drink or what have you, because everybody eats and drinks, and it ended up backfiring on them, and it hurt the shareholders. I'm surprised they have not been, I don't know, maybe there is lawsuits out there, but I'm surprised that they're not showered with lawsuits because the board of directors did not look out for the best interest of the shareholders. When you invest in a company, you assume that they're going to be trying to improve their business. Instead, they just threw that to the wind, and a lot of shareholders lost a lot of money. So the board of directors makes all those major decisions when it comes to buying and selling real estate. Okay. It generally requires them passing a resolution authorizing a person to be in charge of signing documents when it comes to selling or buying the real estate. So generally requires a resolution authoring the sale by securing the sale be secured from the stockholders if all or a substantial portion of the real estate owned by the corporation is being conveyed. But if it's not all or a substantial portion, they could authorize only one officer to sign all the deeds. But the board of directors would have to vote on who's going to be that person that's going to be in charge of signing the paperwork. They pass a resolution, a document that says, okay, this person is authorized to sign the documents to sell this piece of real estate or buy this piece of real estate on behalf of the corporation. Otherwise, who is this person that's walking into a real estate office, they're putting up the property for sale, right? Who is this person? Do they have the authorization to act on behalf of the corporation? Okay, so it doesn't matter even if it's an LLC. You need to prove that you are the authorized person of that LLC, which is a limited liability company, or a corporation, what have you, any of them. It's another form of a corporate structure as a fictitious entity. That you need to have some sort of an authorization letter. So when we are real estate agents and somebody comes to us and they want to sell real estate or buy real estate in the name of a LLC or a corporation, we need to see paperwork from them that they're the authorized person to sign on and act on behalf of those corporations. Okay. Do not take a listing from somebody unless they have the proper paperwork. It's like checking their driver's license when it's a homeowner to make sure that they are who they say they are. But as far as the corporation goes, do we know who the corporation is? Who has that authorization? No, we would need to see a resolution that was passed by the board of directors, and then we could check their IDs to make sure that they're that person. Are you guys paying attention to me?
Yes.
Okay. So it's very important to make sure we got the right people signing listing agreements and contracts.
There's a lot of fraud over there.
Yeah, this is to try to prevent fraud. And we could easily lose our real estate licenses or get penalized by the real estate commission if we don't follow the simple rule of checking the ID of somebody, confirming they are who they say they are. I mean, how do we know it's not a competitor trying to put up one of their properties for sale, just so they can get a news clip that says, they know that they're not going to go through with the sale, but just to get a news thing that says, hey, they put it up for sale. Oh, see, their business entities in financial troubles, and now we help perpetrate that kind of fraud out there. Yikes, lawsuits. That's all I see, right? So, a corporation, let's highlight, can convey real estate only upon a proper resolution passed by its board of directors. That would probably be the correct answer for any question you get on exam. But just know that if it's all or a substantial portion, only then do they need to get the permission from the stockholders as well. But just imagine what an undertaking that would be. Imagine General Motors, who has millions of stockholders. But they have to send out letters to all the stockholders and then hope that the majority of them respond back, granting the authority to do this. That'd be a nightmare undertaking. But that would only be required if they're liquidating all their assets. They're selling all their properties. Otherwise, to sell one, they only need a proper resolution passed by its board of directors. So deeds to real estate can be signed only by an authorized officer. Everybody got those notes?
Yep.
And that concludes this chapter. So chapter 19 is done. Let's do the key terms to review. One who receives property through a deed.
1 minute, I'm not ready yet.
Guarantee.
We're on page 368. I'm sorry. Key terms to review 1 for chapter 19. I'm sorry, what did you say?
I was just taking the snip.
She was sleeping.
Okay. Well, are you ready?
Okay, I'm good.
All right. One who receives property through a deed.
Guarantee.
This is
The grantee, correct. 9 is A. A deed implying that the grantor owns the property, but nothing more. They're just saying I have the legal right to sell it. They're not guaranteeing the quality of the title.
deed implying the guarantee.
Guarantee clause.
No. What type of deed? We're looking for a type of deed.
Oh,
Deed-
deed.
Yep, a deed implying the grantor owns the property, but nothing more. It's not making any other promises. It's just saying, I got the legal right to sell this property.
Is there a 6 dental?
No,
Okay.
we're looking for a type of deed.
Yeah.
Okay. So what type of deed implies that the grantor owns the property and they have the legal right to convey the ownership to it, but they're not making promises as to the quality of the title.
Benchmark.
No, that's not a type of deed.
Bargain, sell, and deed.
A bargain and sale deed, 2 is
Yeah.
B, 2 is
Yeah.
B. Actions that actually transfer title.
Excellent. That actually transferred, right?
Deliver and accept.
Yeah, delivery and acceptance. I just read a little story to you guys about
Yeah.
8 is C, delivery and acceptance. A clause in the deed that makes the transfer. It's the heart of any deed, the way I described it.
Clause in a deed that makes the transfer.
There's guarantee clause.
The
Guarantee.
granting clause, 10 is D. A legal promise.
Covenant.
Covenant, 5 is E, covenant. A document to be transferred, to transfer title to a parcel of real property. A document used to transfer title to a parcel of real property.
D.
Parcel.
Deed.
A deed. 7 is F. Mean sea level at New York Harbor, also local 0 elevation point.
Datum.
Yeah,
Datum.
the datum, however you want to pronounce it. I'm not sure. 6 is G. A deed, another type of deed here, a deed stating the grantor has not encumbered the property while it was in their possession. But they're not guaranteeing the quality of the title that anybody's owned it before them.
Is bargain and sell CAG?
Yes, 3 is H, the bargain and sale CAG type deed. A declaration to a notary official to prevent forgeries.
Acknowledge.
Acknowledgement.
1 is I. There you go. And make a marker placed by the U.S. Geological Survey stating elevation. What do we call that marker?
Benchmark.
It's a benchmark. 4 is J. All right, terms 2. Spot at which the meets and bounds description begins and ends.
Yeah, that is point to beginning.
6 is A, correct. The POB, or point of beginning. A fixed natural or man-made object identifying boundaries in the meets and bounds description. What do we call the fixed, natural, or man-made objects identifying the boundaries, the corners of the properties in the meets and bounds description? Monuments, 5 is B, correct. One who transfers title by signing a deed.
Guarantor.
The grantor, 1 is C. description sufficient to identify a parcel that is accepted by a court of law.
Legal description.
Yes, 3 is D, legal description. To have and to hold clause that explains ownership being transferred. Didn't even finish the definition here. Let's see,
Yeah,
page 368.
that's the second. Habendum clause.
Yes, addendum clause is correct.
Yeah, ex ownership being. What does that means? The whole thing.
Okay, so yes, 2 is E, the clause that we're to have and to hold clause that explains ownership being transferred. That is the habendum clause. 2 is E, that was correct. Deed providing the grantee with the most protection. The grantee is the buyer, once again. So the deed providing the grantee, the buyer, with the most protection of any deed.
Warranty deed.
Warranty deeds, 9 is F. It could also be called a general deed, a general warranty deed, okay? So 9 is F. System for land description used in Western states. What's the legal description of land used in Western states?
Quick.
Meet and bounds.
No.
Meets and bounds is only in the 13 original colonies. What legal description is used in Western states?
Rectangular survey.
The rectangular or government survey is correct. 8 is G. A deed, once again, we're looking for a type of deed, releasing any interest grantor may have without actually claiming seisin, that they're seized of the land.
Quit claim.
Yeah, the quick
claim.
lead.
Deed, correct. Quick claim deed. 7 is H. Just think of it like, remember, you got in the gold rush days, and you got people that are in the gold mines, and then they're like, I'm quitting this claim, we ran out of gold. So what are they saying? They're quitting any interest in this claim for their mine, their gold mine. Okay, so they're giving up their interest in it. So we do have a deed today that's still called a quit claim deed. All right, now a description using boundaries and direction.
That meets and bounds.
That's meets and bounds. 4 is I. It's a legal description using boundaries and direction, only used in 13 original colonies, New Jersey being one of them. And that should conclude chapter 19. So
We want to